Welcome, everybody. My name is John. I'm a recovered alcoholic and drug addict. Today, I just wanted to really address these things that get in our way that maybe I know at the beginning of COVID, I realized, and maybe not at the beginning, maybe it was about 2 months in, I realized I barely wear very much variety of clothing, like very limited in the 2 month span that preceded the lockdown. And I was like, man, my closet is so full of all of this stuff, and I can't hang my cool Sens jersey properly. And I was like, it's time to, and we're at home and we're bored. And so I thought, because we're connected to some guys that are in early recovery at a treatment center, I just decided to clean out my closet. I was like, let's take all of this stuff out of here that's clogging it up. I haven't even worn that. Oh wow, I didn't. Man, that size is a couple sizes. But that's a previous life. And so I just really cleaned my closet and had space for it to operate. I didn't go shopping for new stuff. I think that's a perception that we might have, because really when I'm like just emptying my closet to fill it up again, isn't that kind of the ideology of self-pity and insecurity? Well, I don't have enough clothes, I don't have these right clothes, I got rid of so much, I gave them all away. Oh, I better get some more clothes because I need to dress a certain way and look a certain way. I got my employment. I have to go out of the house for that. Like after COVID happened, and I got all this empty space. And maybe the closet isn't designed to be so full that I can't even separate the clothes to look at the front of them, and they're all getting wrinkly and crowded. And so I believe that where once we have this cleaning and this purging, I think that self-pity can set in, and I think insecurity can set in, and I really am really suffering a loss, almost like mourning, like just like, oh, like I just need to get some more clothes in here. I need to go shopping. I threw out too much. Oh, I shouldn't have thrown out that. And then you see a guy wearing it, and you're like, man, that looks so good on that guy. Did that look good on me like that? Like, I bet it did. I bet it looked better on me. And now I have this regret, and now have this remorse, and I'm like, oh, what have I done? And so now I'll have to buy more and fill it up. And so that's my that's kind of like when something's out of me, I have this desire to fill it up with more of the same thing. And so in recovery, I just really want to start with what this actually means. It's actually clearing out the garden, the temple, the house that God has given us, and it's making room for Him. So if I'm stuck in this remorse and self-pity and insecurity, that it's not happening right away. My tendency is to fill it up. I watch a little bit of this. I eat a little bit more of that. I get involved in these kind of relationships. I do this online stuff. I fill up my time and my space because I'm really feeling empty and sorry for myself and insecure that I don't have the soother that I used to have. And so that's kind of that recovery of a relationship with God, like in the Garden of Eden. They had beautiful communication with God. They had communion with God. God helped them cultivate, and they were partners in the garden, in the temple. Although fear did come in the form of a serpent and cause some disruptances, disrupted everything. And that's what happens in my own life. And so when there's a purging and when there's a cleaning, it feels great. But then there's this subtle thing that comes in, and I make it about myself. And so when we look at the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous on page 79, we're kind of getting the concept of doing the purging and the cleaning, and just going like, this was a mess and it affected other people in my life. So I look at some of the things of fear and old belief systems and ideas, and like real men don't cry and real men earn this type of paycheck and sleep is for the weak. All of these things that have been pushing and driving my life. I've ignored the kids. I've ignored responsibilities. I've done these things because of what's inside of me, the beliefs and ideology and the principles that I have. And so now I come into the recognition of these things, because I don't see what I don't see and I can't hear what I don't hear. And so the part of God opening my eyes and being the light in my heart, he wants to bring wholeness to my heart. He wants to purify me and cleanse me so that his temple can be a full and wholesome spot for him to dwell inside of me. Just like alcohol dwelled inside of me, I need this new solution. So really looking at all of this stuff within me that has been driving me and putting me in motion, we get to this part of seeing that we have damaged the world around us. I've worked with many people and they're like seeing what they've never seen before and like, oh my goodness, I have hurt my children so much. And they're only 8, 10 years old. And the damage that I've done to them and the expectations that I've put onto them. I think that's kind of how I felt too. But, like they're God's children as well. So I got to take responsibility for what I've seen and the damage that I've done. And so in this text, it says, although these reparations take innumerable forms, whether it's money, whether it's, making amends for relationship, it's like reaping and sowing God's love and joy in the world around us where I was destructive. There are some general principles. So these are rules. These are guiding principles, which we find guiding, reminding ourselves that we have decided to go to any lengths to find a spiritual experience. This principle of going to any lengths, no matter what, is to find a relationship with God, is going to be a guiding principle. We ask that we have been given the strength and direction to do the right thing, no matter what the personal consequence may be. We may lose our position or reputation or face jail, but we are willing. We have to be. We must not shrink at anything. And so this is a new principle. Like most of us in our lives try to just minimize the damage, and we try to look for the easier way out, and we try to be like, I do this living amends thing. The past is in the past. We try to do these things, but what the reality of in the spiritual life is that I get to reap and sow, and we call that amends. And so I'm building and constructing and cultivating the garden within my heart. And so now I have to not just say, oh, I'm doing this living amends. I know I owe this and that. I've seen these things. I've really hurt my parents in this way and my kids and these relationships, and the times in high school. Oh my goodness. And the way I got out of debt and all of that kind of stuff. And I've become willing to make amends with the world around me. And here's the reason why. Because if I don't do those things, then I'm not going to be able to really have the benefit of the temple of my heart in a cultivated, clean way that I can have communion with God. It's still going to have these things inside of me that's going to really pop up the fear and the guilt and the shame and all of those things. It's still going to be in my heart. And so I got to really do the work of cleaning, like not filling it back up. Like that's what I was meant in the beginning, where I'm cleaning out my closet. I have breathing room. I could put a piece or two in there. But the reality is, if I don't start to make amends for what I've seen and the reasons why I've been doing this stuff to the world around me, then it's just going to creep back, and I'm going to have a full closet of crap again. And so this is the reason why, because all of this stuff within me actually builds resentment. And that's what I want to talk about today is the importance of resentment and how to kind of deal with it, and then why am I dealing with it. So what's motivating me, or what's getting me excited, and why I would do anything to not compromise my relationship with God is because I can be filled with God. I can be guided and directed and loved by God from the inside, and nothing on the outside needs to change. And so when I have these things inside of me, it will cause up resentment. And so this is what happens in resentment. On page 66, it is plain that a life which includes deep resentment. So this is the deep stuff that we kind of like minimize and just kind of like excuse it and justify it, and that was the past, and these are deep things that are inside of us, leads only to futility and unhappiness. To the precise extent that we permit these, do we squander the hours that might have been worthwhile. But with the alcoholic, and fill in the blank, with the person that is separated from God, whose hope is the maintenance and growth of a spiritual experience, this business of resentment is infinitely grave. We found that it is fatal. It doesn't say alcohol's fatal. It says resentment is fatal. For when harboring such feelings, we shut ourselves off from the sunlight of the spirit. The insanity of alcohol returns, and we drink again. So what's happening is resentment is rooted in fear. And if I don't get to the bottom of these things and allow the fullness of God to fill my closet drawers, then there's going to be fear. And fear is the igniter of a mental obsession that I try to soothe, I try to fill my time with, I try to get back the clothes that I freely gave away, and now they look better on somebody else. And so I'm always in this perpetual tension of fear, and the garden isn't going well because I haven't made room for God. And I'm actually shut off from the sunlight of the Spirit. So you can ask yourself, even as I'm talking, is, do I feel the sunlight of the Spirit on a daily basis? Is my heart full of warmth? When I think about the sunlight, sometimes I even have to, like, I'm in front of a window and I have to pull down the blinds halfway because the sun is so bright in my eyes, like it actually hurts my eyes. And so, do I have this experience with the Spirit of God? Is his love almost blinding me? Is his love causing me to be affected and warmed on the inside? And so we see what, if we're not taking care of these roots, if we're not willing to go to any lengths, we look at the enemy as fear. So God's perfect love will cast out fear, but we have to come into agreement of, like, these clothes are taking up all the room and I have to get rid of them. And if I don't, fear, it says, is an evil and corroding thread. The fabric of our very existence was shot through it. It set in motion trains of circumstances which brought us misfortune, which we felt we didn't deserve. And so now you get this concept of fear not being an emotion, fear actually being the enemy, of whispering in your ear, you don't have enough, you're not good enough. Everybody looks better in your clothes than you do. Oh, you just need to buy more. And so it's driving you and setting yourself in motion. It's a slave driver. And so our book also says on page 84 that resentment is the number one offender. This has nothing to do with alcohol, pornography, drug addiction, porn addiction, overeating, undereating, purging, candy, codependency, adrenaline addiction, chaos creating, fixing, and all of these things are just symptoms of the problem. And it's all coming from these resentments that are rooted in fear. So either I'm basking in the sunlight of God, being lit up, being filled with his Spirit, having his clothes implanted in my closet, and they're clothes of joy, and they're clothes of purity, and they're clothes of contentment and satisfaction and endurance and peace and all of those things that come from the Spirit of God from within. Maybe there's some remnants of my old clothes for sure, but we're going to continue to work on that. So it says resentment is the number one offender. It destroys more of us than anything else. From it stem all forms of spiritual disease, for we have not only been mentally and physically ill, we have been spiritually sick. When the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. In dealing with resentments, we put them on paper. So that's where we're at session 13 and 14. We're now getting into the inventory process. And so we have this way of actually having a mirror in front of us. I know it's on paper, but it is so powerful that it causes a person to actually see the inside of them. And so I think I've worked with enough people. I think from my experience, I think sometimes women have a harder time with this. Just in the context of like, I'm overwhelmed. I have so much going on. I can't handle anymore. And it's like, I get that, but there's a reason why. And I would hesitate to say that your closet's too full. And this process actually eliminates all the clothing. But some of us get to this point and go, I don't want to lose the clothing. I still wear these things. Okay, well, I haven't worn like 18 of them in like 2 years, but still, like I might need them for some point. And so where I started was, am I willing to actually do whatever it takes? What was the words that I used? It was that we would decide to go to any length. So whatever that is, maybe it's taking the bus, maybe it's canceling a couple clubs that you're in, whatever it is, to do this work, to actually purge your closet, you need the time and the space to do it. And so that's what this principle is. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to set aside time. There's some of us that have to set away like 6 months to go to a rehab center. I don't think we all need to do that, but I need to actually set time to go through the closet. And so when I look at these resentments, it's all coming out of a part of me that has been threatened or harmed. And so this is what I have to die of. This is what I have to take to the cross. This is what really hurts me, what threatens me, what gets me going and gets me grinding my teeth, who's interfering with me, who's frustrating me. All of those things are deep-rooted resentments because I feel a way about myself for me to be okay. We all do. I actually think that I am a good human being. I do make mistakes. I'm not perfect. I come short a lot. I say the wrong thing, but ultimately I deserve your respect. I deserve your love. And I shouldn't have to try to prove myself. These are things that I believe about myself for me to be okay. So we call that self-esteem. And you might be a person with low self-esteem, but low self-esteem is just a form of backwards pride. So we all think about ourselves in a way that most of us get through the day. This is where resentment and guilt and shame kind of start to distort our thinking and make it so that we're not okay. And then when somebody says something that comes contrary to how I believe about myself, then I get in a little bit of a tizzy and I make some comments and I do some defending and I do some justification, and then I might even have a blowout. And so this is the self that I get to look at in resentment. I get to look at my self-esteem and my pride. And like I get to really confront the parts of me that are actually being driven by fear. And so I look at this front side of the old belief systems, the old self, and I go through my egos, so my pride and my self-esteem. And then I go through the expectations that I have with the world around me. And I believe that we all have some sort of expectation. When you get to the checkout clerk, you want to be served in a nice and friendly way. The customer is always right. I don't know about you, but they have these things called the self checkout. I am horrible at them, but they never have a lineup. So I'm pretty sure everybody else sucks at them. And I go in them and I'm like, within 3 items, I'm already needing help. Like the red lights coming on. And then I'm like getting insecure already. I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, okay, is it the bag? Did I not put it on properly and it didn't weigh it? Like, what's going on? There's a camera watching me. They're filming me now. Everybody. And I want that person, I want the staff to come over and go, sir, let me help you out. I don't want the staff to be like, hey, you moron, like you can't even read, you can't follow simple directions. Like, oh my, everybody, I don't really think that I deserve that. Like, I don't walk around going like, I need people to insult me for me to be okay. So that's kind of like this. I have an expectation from the world around me, but if it doesn't go my way, then I get upset about it. And then I have beliefs. So I look at my personal beliefs in relationships and I look at male and female relationships and I look at my finances and I look at what takes from me, what am I taking, what's taking from me, and I look at these things and I just go, wow, this is what I really think about men and women. This is what I think about women leaders. This is what I think about how a stepdad should be and how a father should be. And this is how I think like the world should operate. And when it doesn't, it affects my ego. It affects my pride and my self-esteem. And then I get to look at the other side of it. So as somebody that's done my own resentments, and then somebody that works probably almost every week with other people's resentments, which is way more fun. It's my job in our literature. It's fact finding and fact facing. And if you can't see what you don't see, and if you can't hear what you don't hear, it's my job to be able to do that. It's my job to help you guide you through this process of actually seeing yourself. And it's your job to face the facts. So when we go through this process, I've seen people like, and it's happened to me. It's the same thing. It's like when I get to the bottom of it, and it's like a Plinko board where you drop the Plinko and it goes down, down, down. It's always going to hit a fear, and so I know that's going to happen, but I never know which fear. And so when it happens, and I've had this happen, in the last couple of years where I hit this fear that I've never seen before. And I'm coming in at this time, it was like 14 years sober. And I'm doing this work and I'm like, if I have this fear, that means God's perfect love isn't here like I think it is. And if I have this fear, like how am I even sober? Why isn't the mental obsession kicking in all the time? And and I just heard like it's God's grace. It's God's love. Don't worry, child. This is a process for your lifetime. We're going to be finding stuff all the time. There's going to be facts that are coming up and you just need to face them. And so recently I got to be in the room with somebody addressing a stepfather. And I had a co-pace setter that I've worked with listening to it. And we get to, as a step kid and the condemnation and the criticalness that happened. And we get to the bottom. And the guy's like a deer in headlights. He's seeing truth. He's facing it. He's like, wow, this has really like been driving my life. And I'm like, do you want to give it to God? And of course, I just find this objectionable. I've hurt people because of this. I've hurt the closest people. And oh, what happened to my stepdad? I thought this was, no, it's nothing about your stepdad. This is about you and how the fear from that is driving your life. And then I look over at my friend and he's teary-eyed. And I'm like, hey, whoa, what's going on with you? And he goes, you don't remember our first resentment? I'm like, no, actually, there's been like 3 years onto your resentment. And he goes, my first resentment was me being the stepdad to my stepson. And he's hearing a resentment from the reflection of him being the stepdad. And we were just sitting there in the love of God and the love of the Father saying, guys, you're my children. It's not your responsibility to carry this weight of being the stepdad and the stepchild. Let me just father you. Let me just come in and nurture you and love you. And it was a beautiful moment that you can't orchestrate. Like I didn't make that up. I was like, I didn't see that coming. And it's so powerful that God wants to infiltrate the enemy of fear. The enemy, even in the garden, God came in, but so did the serpent. And the serpent said, you need your independence. God's withholding from you. And isn't that us like cleaning out our closet? Like, oh, I shouldn't have got rid of all that. Oh, that would have been useful in this situation. Oh, I need more of them. Oh, they look better in it than me. God wants to be the centrality of your garden. And we have to give it our all to bring this stuff up, to face this stuff up while we're in community and fellowship, and we need each other and the help of the Spirit of God to find these things that we don't see. And so that's the beautiful part of resentments, is that we actually get to see ourselves, the depth of what's happening and driving us, and how we've been separated from God. And now we get to bring that to God and go, I find this objectionable. This tree is rotten in the middle of the garden. Could you take it away root and branch? And it's only by God's power that he can take fear, that he can separate you from drugs and alcohol and pornography and codependent relationships. Only God. You can never get power over that. Only God's power through a relationship with him. And that's why it's so important to have a clean garden, to be cultivating it on a daily basis. And you're always watching out for fear. That's my job today, is to see where the enemy's coming in, the serpent's coming in and whispering in my ear.